friends. I am OmnusI. Oh, I'm not here in my usual role as Game Master at Large. Today I take on a different role, that of the critic. My stated goal as the OmnusCritic is to delve into the body of gaming materials, modules, core books, and the like, separating the wheat from the chaff, letting you know about the great values that are out there, the experiences that await you in your hobby, and also to ward you against the pitfalls of subpar products and shoddy business models. So, I am the OmnusCritic, to your help. My first consideration for this, my inaugural episode, shall be a work which, appropriately enough, is aimed at a new demographic. They're aiming very much towards the beginning gamer, or the lapsed gamer perhaps, who seeks a simple set of rules to come back into the fold with. The work that I am referring to is Swords and Wizardry Light. And this work indeed is a relatively simple creature, distilling the essence of an old-school role-playing game like Swords and Wizardry down to but 4 pages, with rules that are easy to learn and easy to access by anybody who plays them. Now, in my criticisms, I'm going to be judging 4 simple categories. Aesthetics, what makes the work beautiful and interesting to use. The writing, is the prose clear and flowing, or does it set your teeth on edge like fingernails down a chalkboard? Mechanics, does it work, or is it difficult to follow? And finally, value, is it worth your money and your time? So, the first category, aesthetics, is a difficult one. After all, it's only 4 pages. There's not a great deal of room for beautiful art. However, there is a certain aesthetic and simplicity. And that is how Swords and Wizardry Light makes its hay. As far as the layout and design, it is very straightforward. All of the information is easy to grasp and access, and the very little art that is employed is primarily in a few pictures of monsters on the Game Master side, and a small inset picture of a wizard at the header of the title. So, you're not going to see a great deal of beautiful art in a simple 4-page introductory. But what's there is perfectly sufficient. Also appealing is the backdrop, which is in a blue scale and shows some art which is very much indicative of gaming in the old days. Not the most elaborate paintings and artistry by the likes of Larry Elmore, but certainly serviceable and not unpleasant to the eye. I give it full marks for the aesthetics of it. It does what it needs to do, and it's not hard to look at. Now, as far as the writing goes, the writing is clear, concise, and to the point, which is exactly what you would expect with an introductory module. It doesn't waste time in flowery prose. It doesn't have florid examples outlining play. It's very straight and to the point. Sometimes brevity is a virtue, and in this case it's a necessary one. There's no wasted words. Everything is directed to get you into the action as soon as you start reading it. Immediately you are greeted with all of the rules required to create a character. On the back side, you are greeted with all of the things that make up the various classes and abilities that you will use during the game. And because of the nature of how they crafted the physical copy of Swords and Wizardry Light, the work itself can be used as a a game master's screen. So you can prop it between the game master and the players. The players can access the information on their side. The game master has all of his information on his side, which includes the monsters. It includes the tables that are required for play, and a few other useful guides. So as far as the writing goes, well, again, if there were a lot of wasted words, you would not be able to have nearly as much information. So, in what it has, is perfectly sufficient. And I beg you to excuse my magical fireplace. It occasionally resets itself. Now, carrying onward, as far as the mechanics of the game go, in this, one really couldn't run too far afield of the original source material. Swords and Wizardry itself is clearly more than just inspired by the earliest Dungeons and Dragons iterations. And Swords and Wizardry Light follows along in those ways. The character creation is effectively essential, rolling 3 6-sided dice for each of your attributes. The attributes are the same as you might find in all of the early fantasy games: strength, dexterity, constitution, what have you. As far as choices for the races, they are, again, there's a smattering. It's not a full smorgasbord of choices, but in something of this nature, one wouldn't actually want something with a distracting number of choices. In addition, the classes are limited to the 4 pillar classes of fantasy gaming. You have the warrior in his superior armor. You have the healer, a holy man, who fights alongside of the group and also heals their wounds and inspires them. You have the wizard, who eschews armor and chooses to concentrate on casting spells to the exclusion of everything else. And of course you have the specialist, or the rogue or thief, who becomes essential when it comes time to deal with mechanical traps and stealthing about throughout the dungeon. Now, as these rules are written in old school game parlance, they don't have a lot of wasted rules that act as a safety net for the players. They are simple and to the point. One's gear is likewise very simple. The range of weapons is not expansive, but enough to represent many of the weapons available in fantasy. The monsters that the game master has supplied for him, there's about a score of the more commonly found fantasy monsters. Something that anyone who has experience in the fantasy genre will immediately feel comfortable with. And the rules are relatively watertight. There are some slight omissions and a few editing errors here and there, but nothing that would cause your average person any kind of fret. One can use these rules to play a fun game. Everything is in there. Enough to make the characters, enough to play the characters, and enough for the game master to create their own storylines or borrow from storylines that they may find here and there, and have a good time. Essentially, that is what this is all about. The mechanics are sound. I definitely give it a passing grade. In OmnusCritic, in anything that I criticize, it's very simple. You either pass or you fail. If you fail, I can't say that I recommend it, unless it is a slight sin. But there are a few slight sins. In this case, the aesthetics are passing. Certainly does its job. The writing is passing. There's nothing that one can't understand with a little bit of reading, and one could get right into the meat and potatoes of the play with very little prodding. This is ready to go right out of the package. As far as the mechanics go, it obtains a passing grade. It's the same mechanics fantasy games have used since the 70s. And, quite honestly, improved upon in several small ways, again, for the sake of brevity and ease of play. Finally, we come down to value. And this is, of course, a sticking point for those who wish to build up a library, and I can assure you the value of Swords and Wizardry Light is excellent. Why? Well, it's free. I purchased my version at a cost of $0 at a convention in Madison recently. The PDF for this game is currently available, and there will be a link at the bottom of this review. The author is an engaging fellow and very enterprising, and he and the company that stands behind him have plans of developing this free-to-use product in a variety of exciting ways, adding new classes, expanding what is available to play. Perhaps they may even create modules designed specifically for the light model. And I say, good for them. All in all, of course that leaves it with a passing grade. Everything about it is a fine product. You could do a lot worse, certainly. And in this case, I would definitely say, if you are going to fit into that niche where you're either a new gamer who's looking for something just to introduce you to the hobby, or if you are someone perhaps who has lapsed, who once gamed but has given it up for one reason or another, your entry point into this is but slight. Print off a copy or find yourself a copy. I certainly think that if you are the audience for this, you will be most impressed with Swords and Wizardry Light. And that is my Omnus review. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I know I certainly have. And I look forward to doing more Omnus criticisms at future dates. And these will cover a variety of products, books, and other supplies so that you may have a fair shake knowing what you're getting into. I am OmnusI, as the OmnusCritic, here welcoming you and saying goodbye in this time. Until the next, good travels.